Oh, I can't see anything, Suzanne. Are you wanting me to carry on, or?
Yes, no, I thought you were. Go ahead.
Oh, okay. Right. Welcome, everyone. So yeah, I thought I'd use this image as a festive image for the event, and it came in from Paul Kirby, and I thought it appropriate to start with Paul's picture. After that, I'm going to go in alphabetical order of the Christian names, or 4 names of the people who submitted images. So Paul, would you tell us about your picture, please?
Yes, thank you, Ken. This was actually the result of a commission from my wife, who said, can I have a picture, please, to go out on our emails at Christmas? It does focus the mind somewhat, having a commission, and it's quite useful in that respect. Having a commission or a project is always a good way of getting out of a rut. I've been trying to take some still lives of flowers from the garden. So I thought, well, why not the seasonal vegetables? So this is what you see. Some leeks, parsnips, onions hiding away, and the sprouts, of course. This was all done in the greenhouse in the dark, and I'm not quite sure what the neighbours thought I was up to, with fairy lights and torches. For the technically minded, I wanted to keep the backdrop, which is a piece of horticultural fleece, out of focus, whilst everything in the picture being quite sharp. And I also wanted to play with the focus bracketing feature on a new camera I bought. So basically this is shot wide open at 2.8, so very shallow depth of field, but photos stacked between the roots of the leek in the front and the bird at the top. So it's very shallow but very precise, focusing across its depth. But basically it's a bit of fun. So happy Christmas, everybody.
Well done.
Thanks very much, Paul. I thought it was terrific. Right, from here on, I'm going to show, as I said, in alphabetical order of 4 names. You've got a maximum of 3 minutes, if you would, to be able to talk about your images. You don't have to take 3 minutes if there's not 3 minutes to be used. What else did I need to tell you? No, I think that's it. Oh yeah, now some people sent me images with titles, others didn't. So if there is a title and it's missing, it's because I couldn't determine what it was from what you sent. So feel free to add titles if there isn't one there. Okay, I'm going to start with Alan Castle. Is Alan on? Is Alan on the call? Suzanne, can you tell if Alan's here? Okay, I'm assuming Alan isn't with us, so he was good enough to send me some notes in case he couldn't be. Alan goes to India on business quite a lot. He loves the colour, noise, traffic and people, and as an inveterate photographer, whenever he takes his camera out, people come running to have their picture taken. And so he was leaving the Mumbai Exhibition Centre. These kids were playing cricket on a piece of bare ground across the street. As soon as they saw him start to take pictures, they came running to him. And as you can see, it's rather a rudimentary bat that is being used, pretty old by the look of it. But cricket is the national sport in India, and wherever you go, you'll see kids playing cricket in the streets or on bare ground, using concrete blocks or anything that will serve as a wicket. And these either handmade bats, or if you're lucky enough to pick up an old bat from somewhere else. These boys came running over, and he reckons they're all dreaming of being Sachin Tendulkar one day, and wonders if any of them have succeeded. Thanks, Alan. And now on to Amanda Threlfall. Amanda, are you with us? Suzanne, can you tell if these people are here? I can't hear you.
I will go through the list, and I don't see Amanda.
Okay. I don't know anything about this. Amanda didn't send me any notes other than I did ask when I replied to her where she took these, and it was in her garden. But she was hoping to be here, but sometimes can't be on these meetings because of other responsibilities she has. So some macro photography. I can't tell you what they are. Bit of predation there. I think we've seen one of those bugs before in the competition we ran last year. I think, oh no, Robert Harvey, I think, showed us one of them.
You, Ken.
Sorry?
Excuse me interrupting you, but the first one was a damselfly.
Okay.
The second one was is a hoverfly.
Uh-huh.
I'm not sure what the spider is predating on the hoverfly. And the third one is a shield bug or a stink bug.
That's it. I couldn't think what it was, but yeah, I've heard of it. Thank you. I'm not sure who that was, but
That was Rachel. Thank you, Rachel.
You're welcome.
Thanks, Rachel. And if anybody recognises anything in future pictures that I don't or don't know about, and the photographer isn't with us, feel free to jump in. So on to
everyone else is here up to your name, Ken. I checked.
Okay, thanks. I know I spotted Anthony. Anthony, do you want to tell us about these pictures?
Just very briefly, good morning. We went up to the Lake District back end of September for our first holiday for a long time. We drove up in glorious sunny weather. Next day, sort of rested and relaxed in glorious sunny weather, and then the rain started. And we then had 2 weeks of almost continuous rain, but with the odd bit of sunshine in between. So all these photographs are just caught when there was a bit of sunshine around. This is Wastwater looking up to Scarfell.
Anthony,
Yes?
I was at that very spot the second week of September.
We were a week or two later. It's a beautiful spot.
Yeah.
Isn't it, John? And it doesn't need sunshine. It's still so dramatic.
Yes, I think it's dramatic because you get the sun on the hills, the sort of lights highlighting odd bits of the fells.
Okay, shall I move to the next one, Anthony?
Yep.
You tell me when
Yep.
you're ready.
Please move on.
Oh, cracker.
That is Blee Tarn. I spent an hour or two there in the rain and the gloom, taking various photographs. There was a chap there that had been there all day, set up. And as I was walking back to the car, I suddenly noticed this shaft of sunshine onto the hill and just put my camera to my eye and took a photograph. It's been dealt with a little bit in Lightroom, but I think it makes quite a dramatic image of the sun on the hill and the reflection in the lake.
Next.
Yep, sorry.
That's great. That was really nice. Yeah. And where's that one?
That's Rydal Water, the famous boathouse on Rydal Water. That particular one is taken from the road. I just rather like the view of the boathouse and the cottage behind and the hill and the sky.
Me too.
Okay. That is one of my favourite spots in the Lake District. That's at the end of Buttermere. looking not up the lake towards Crummock Water, but looking the other way to Giant Haystacks. And again, it was the light on the hills that catches the eye, the stream leading you into the valley. Okay.
Yeah, certainly lovely places and nice capturing of them. Okay, so next up, thanks Anthony. Next up is
Thank you.
Ashwin Chorn
Hello.
with something a little bit different from Anthony's.
Yeah, I put in 4 images. They are not new, but these are 4 images. They're all composite images. Can you hear me okay?
Yes,
we can hear
perfectly.
you. Yep.
Yeah, they're all composite images, which were done primarily for our club competitions. This one was a model shoot where the same models, the one holding the cage, one sitting inside, so change of dress, and then just so I put them two together, and the backdrop is the Lake of Abbey, and so that's a fairly simple composition, 3 or 4 layers. Okay, I call it my nightmare. It's the same person trapped in the in the cage. Okay. This one is also a composite. This was taken in Venice last February at the carnival time. We just managed to return before we had the lockdown, and the day after we left Venice, it went into a lockdown. But that's a straight, but the one shot is the seafront in Venice. And the couple is in fact mannequins in a shop window, and I made the scene to look like night by a sort of a blue filter, and the cat comes somewhere from India. Okay.
Next.
Yes, next please. Oh, this was for a competition which the subject was triangles. So it's a little bit overcrowded, but I started off with the base, which is the triangles, and then the flyovers. They go into the Burj Khalifa, which is in Dubai, the tallest building, and the scene, the background is Dubai. The model in the front was taken in some model shoot, can't remember where, and the fountain was in somewhere in the Mall in Bristol, and of course the behind the fountain is the Clifton Suspension Bridge. But yeah, it's I call it the fantasy land because it looked like it's leading some nowhere.
That's really fun.
Yeah, it's a good exercise as well, creating all that. It started off with the triangles at the base, and I didn't know where it was going to, but there are triangles everywhere. And if you look at the columns, the Y-shaped columns, the shape of the model holding the dog, the fountain, and the Burj Khalifa, they're all triangles. But,
And how did it do in the competition, Ashwin?
it came second.
Yeah.
The first one, I can't remember what the first one was, but anyway, I just wanted to sort of try something with the creative imaging, which is what I'm into at the moment. Yeah. Okay, thank you.
And this one?
This is the last one. I thought it fits in the Christmas theme. This was, I think, last year or the year before. The competition theme was Christmas, and I went around my home, and a lot of people with the decorations. This, I call it the Rudolph at warp speed. So they're flying off with the sleigh, and the the lights behind, they were sort of hanging down somebody's front wall, and did another sort of layer of the zoom, so makes it so it gives the impression of speed. And I think that got in somewhere. I can't remember whether it got away or not. But yes, I was pleased with that. Yeah.
And did you just zoom in with your lens?
No, that was in a Photoshop zoom. This is
Oh, okay.
motion blur. I was just playing around with about three or four layers, and so that's was having fun with the lights which I photographed around here.
I think it's a lovely idea, really well executed. I really like that image.
Right, thank you.
Thank you.
Last one.
Okay, moving on to Bill Collett. Bill, take the floor.
That's me. Hello.
Hi.
I've got a studio, and of course, I haven't had any models to photograph, so I got one of these water droplet things. And so I've been experimenting with that. So this is just dropping water into a tank. Try the next one.
Water droplet thing, do you mean like just an eyedropper, or?
It's no, it's an electronic valve that drops of water, and you have a timer with it. What you do is you drop one droplet, and then you drop another one. As it splash comes back up, you drop another one on top of it, and you get all these different shapes, and it's all to do with timing and things to get it right.
And you're dropping the water in an aquarium or on the floor?
That's in like a little container. That's all, with a light behind it.
Thank you.
You've got to get the timing right. It's the timing. You've got four knobs on the thing. Which one is when you drop the first droplet, and then you get the delay between that and the second droplet, and then you've got the size of the droplets, and then when the camera flashes.
Oh.
And you've got to fiddle with them, and you can get all sorts of different things. Try the next one.
As we're about to see, I think.
Woo.
But you don't matter how you try, you will never get the same thing twice. Any slight movement of air, temperature in the studio, it all varies it. It just you get a variation every time.
What do you use for your backgrounds?
Oh, I was trying all sorts. I just stick anything up there and see what it looks like. I had some Christmas paper and all sorts of things. You get all different effects. Try the next one.
Woo.
That looks like a spooky face in there.
It does, doesn't it?
Yeah,
You can't recreate it though.
wonderful.
I think that's some Christmas wrapping behind it on that one.
Now that's my fave.
Try the next one. But you can just you get hundreds and hundreds of images, and they're all different,
Mm.
and some of them are good.
They're really effective.
Sounds like a distraction during lockdown.
Yeah, that's what it is.
So do you title them at all, Bill?
Oh no, I got too many. Yeah. Of course, I got pictures with nothing in at all, or I've got a little weight that I dropped down to focus on. I got pictures of that as well. Just remembering what to do at the right time. But it's very interesting to do.
Oh, I imagine great fun as well. Okay, thanks, Bill. Next, we're going to have some images from David Sage, and just to let you know, David is also going to show us some of his work in collaboration with others about Laycock, very famous village, of course. So we're going to do that when we've a little bit later, and give David 10 minutes on his own to show us some images on that. But here are some of his less or different images, nothing about Laycock. David.
No, nothing about Laycock. I'm not sure what order you were going to put them in. I like to try and take images which potentially are original and can't be done by anybody else, mainly outside. This is probably a traditional type of image, but it was taken in Freshwater West on our first trip away for nearly 20 months back in October. We had some pretty awful weather. The sun came out a little bit, and we got round to Freshwater West, and the sun was coming out nicely. I managed one shot before the cloud came across, a bit of a sunset on the water. So I resorted to a few different things, and I was quite pleased with the way this came out.
A lot of detail in the foreground as well.
Yeah, I think one of the interesting about the beach is in Pembrokeshire is actually all the coloured stones that were there. And I think that comes out on the bottom left-hand corner of the shot. The trouble is when you do these type of things, you don't quite know how they're going to come out. I don't do an awful lot of them, and it was taken on a little gorilla pod. It's not taken on any big tripod. I'm not into carrying lots of stuff around with me if I can help it.
I've got a picture of Freshwater East that I sell, and it sells quite well because the sand around the other side of the headland is very red, isn't it?
Yeah,
so
yeah.
I know these two bays. Yeah,
I must admit it's about the third time we've been to Pembrokeshire, but we went to places we haven't been to before, and I think it's probably as nice, if not better, than some of the places in Cornwall to photograph.
Oh yes, lovely,
yeah.
Lovely.
And if you can ever get to the Castle Martin Range and get to the Ulag Rocks in the Welsh Bridge, that's quite stunning as well.
And many fewer people than in Cornwall.
Oh crikey, yeah.
Everywhere.
Crikey, yeah.
Shall I go to the next one, Dave?
Yeah. I don't know which one it's going to be.
I've just put them in the order that you attached them to.
Oh right, okay. Right. Well, this was a lockdown picture back in March. Walk along the Wilton Barts Canal, and the swan was quite happy to turn around and perform. So I took a number of different shots there. The light was nice. It doesn't look particularly sharp on here, but I can assure you that the swan was sharp on the original.
That's really dramatic effect, isn't it?
Yeah. Not an old swan, obviously a younger swan, probably previous year, I would think. There's always some down there. There's always something different going on in the canal. If anyone doesn't know, it's the canal from Chippenham through to Laycock. It's about a 4-mile walk there and back. You can move on if you like. Right, a bit more local to people in Bristol. One of the opportunities we had as a club, Laycock Positive Photography Club, we went down to the harbour, one of our summer shoots, a traditional view of the harbour, but slightly different with just a couple of people. I don't know who they were, sat down enjoying the evening as light goes down, enjoying a beer. Sat right down tight on the right hand side. There's actually a big boat, and getting close to get that shot without them knowing what was going on was one of the easiest of things, but I was quite pleased with the way it came out. Something a bit different. This was at the end of the evening, walking back towards the car, going through Millennium Square, and there was a funfair there. Not a lot of people. To the right, there was a great big wheel, and you can just see a little bit on the right-hand side there. But I think probably A, the colours, but B, the moon, are the two things that perhaps made the image for me. There you go.
Thanks, David. Well, we'll look forward to hearing about Laycock in a little while.
You're welcome.
So next we have Gareth Martin.
I just unmute myself. Welcome everyone. I I booked this when I saw show and tell come up on the Western region. I thought, oh, that'll be good to watch. And then Suzanne invited me to take part. So I've sent 5 images in. This was taken the end of November last year. It's taken on Scare Beach. We went for a walk. It's a 7-mile there and back walk, and we went to visit the wreck of the Altmark. I've never got good photographs of the wreck of the Altmark, but I got this one. Taken on a tripod, guys, with a 300, and it's Port Talbot Steelworks, Tata. This has done reasonably well now, and I've been presented. Linda, who knows me, knows I do small prints, so I've been presented with a massive print of this for my walls. So the question of the day, guys, was one of the photographers said, do we take the flames out? And if you take them out, the judge will come along and say it's a blue cast. So I left them in. So next one, please, Ken.
I really like that one, Gareth. The Port Talbot one, particularly.
I didn't send you titles, I don't think. So this is called Looking Out. The other one was Steel Power. This is Looking Out. It's not, well, I say he's not set up. The guy was waiting for us. It's taken in a place called Lanelli House in Llanelli. And they do tours, and I've booked up another one in January. It's about £6.50 each. And there's a cafe there. Anyway, this was taken on my previous camera, an Olympus E5, and it struggles in low light. And that's why you can see so much noise. Can you see it in down the bottom?
Yeah.
The reason I've done monochrome, because in color, see his right shoulder, just above him is a wisteria purple, right? And it was so strong, it pulled you out of the picture to the flower. So I made it black and white. This got in last year's RPS Digital Imaging Exhibition. All right, Next. Right, the question is for you, is it set up or not?
I'm gonna go not.
It's set up.
Oh,
It's
cool.
set up. This guy has now joined the camera club, but I met him. I had to do a rehabilitation course, and I met him swimming, and he said, Gareth, I'm a professional model and actor, small-time actor, and he is. He went bullying, he is, right? And he's an extra. So he said, I can do a setup, model shoot for your camera club. So in Port Talbot, guys, 8 miles up the valley is a place called Avanargoed. It's a coal mining museum. So that's a wheel behind his head, right? So we took him up. And what I like about this one, he doesn't smoke. He used to 30 years ago, but he doesn't smoke. He stuck that fag in and it's lit to be authentic. And he dressed up in a 1940s coal mining. So the people who run the museum were so taken with him, they had him up there now to teach children, because children have never heard of coal. Right? So my other friends who shot this guy, Rod, have won awards. This one, Ken, has Bond. Maybe it's the wheel in the background, but I called it In the Field of Industry. Next.
I like it.
Right, guys. We saw Anthony's lovely images of Wastwater and the Lake District earlier, and everyone goes on holiday, guys, right? And this is my holiday shot. It's 3.5 miles from Bamborough Castle. I went to Bamborough, guys, like everyone, to do the sunset. I didn't get anything good. My cat is coughing. And I saw the light. Now, if you ever see my work, I do take toilet shots, guys, bathrooms. And I took the bathroom here. Then I moved into the bedroom. This is our cottage. And I've put the frame in, composed it that way, just didn't want all the bed, and then the mirror on the far right. So I was stuck for a title. So I called on my wife, who's was an English teacher, and she came up with My Sanctuary. So this got into the RPS Digital Imaging Exhibition last year. Next. And this is taken this year. For my camera club, I arrange Friday shoots. Every Friday we go out on a shoot. Might be just walking on the countryside. But this was a set. I say this was a setup. This shot wasn't. But we went to a stables just a few miles from where I live. And I've planned 2 more now for next year. Now, this was awkward to take, right? On my left were 2 of my friends, Alan and Gerald, lying on the floor, looking up at a horse's head, which was on my right. And I saw this guy who's the owner sitting like that. And so I shot through the middle of them to get this shot. So this got in this year's RPS Digital Imaging Exhibition, and it's called At Rest. I have worked on it. It's all done in Silver Effects and Photoshop. I have worked on this one, and I printed it now. Next. Is that it? That's it.
I think that's it.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, thanks, Gareth. Very pleased to have you, and glad you took up Suzanne's invitation.
Yeah.
So next we have Greg Lovett. Greg, tell us all about your
Thanks.
images.
The first 8 months of this year were taken up with trying to sort out an LRPS panel, which was successful in August. And then following that, I wanted a bit of light relief. And I was very aware that I didn't know anything about flash photography. So I set to work at home to try and teach myself some basic studio lighting techniques. And this image, which I called from the Dutch school, was based upon a painting by Rembrandt. It involves a single speed light and a reflector. It's a blanket on the wall as the backdrop, a tea towel for my head, and a blanket over my shoulders. I submitted that, and it was accepted for the RPS Digital Imaging this year, much to my pleasure. So next image. This is me again, I'm afraid. There's 4 self-portraits. I apologize in advance that you're having to look at me 4 times.
A good idea for us who can't find models.
Well, that was the point, really. So you know, I was aware that I was going to faff around for quite a bit of time trying to work out exactly how to set lights up, etc. So again, this is another example of Rembrandt style lighting. I called this one Rembrandting. And again, I have a towel on my head, a black towel, which was a golf towel, which I've clipped into place with pegs to try and make it look sort of like one of those Dutch beret things. Again, it's a blanket on the wall. Again, it's a single speed light and a reflector. So the next image. This one I called The Game Commences. It's another single speed light lit. This one's actually a composite because the wall isn't really there. I took the wall separately, and I also added a bit of sort of fogginess to the background to try and add a bit of atmosphere to this. But it again is an indoor studio shot. The final image I called Careful What You Click On, and this was my Halloween image. This one's a slightly more complicated lighting setting because by this stage I've attended the RPS organised lighting course run by Chris Burfoot at Laycock, which was really, really good. And if you are at all interested in learning lighting, I strongly recommend it. But again, it's 2 light setup this time because obviously I wanted to have as the key light an effect which looked as though the screen was lighting my face, but I also wanted to produce some separation from the back of my head against the background. So I've got a hair light there. The hair light's actually another speed light above and behind me. and to give direction on it and stop it lighting the background, I've used, I don't have expensive studio lighting kit. I've just got 2 speed lights, and I've stuck cardboard around the speed light to create a sort of snood funnel type situation to direct the light where I wanted it. And then obviously I've taken a second picture of me reaching out from the screen, which I've tinted in I think Affinity Photo to give it that the hands that green look, and then obviously there's a simple 2-layer process involved in the composite. There we go. Thank you.
I can see that the portraits became more and more complicated as you became more and more experienced, I think.
Yeah, it's been a really fun thing to do, and probably something I'll do a little bit more of over the winter months. Because when it's really horrible out there and you don't want to go outside, it's something that will take up a good half hour of the day.
Oh, at least. Thank you.
Greg, is the red bit at the bottom cutting off your waist? Is that a chair?
It's a table. Yeah, I ummed and ahed about that, because it's in fact it's the table that the laptop is on, and I think probably what I needed to do was to lighten the base of the computer laptop more, so that you could see that it is actually sitting on that.
Oh, I see. Right. Yeah, I get it now.
Yeah, but there comes a stage with this sort of thing where you've faffed around with it so much, you sort of think, right, well, I've done that one now. I'm going to move on and think about something else. But yes, I think probably the thing to do would be for me to introduce a sliver of light on the bottom edge of the keyboard for the laptop.
Yeah, I get it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, thanks, Greg. So we're really interesting creative stuff there. And talking about interesting and creative, let's move on to Greta Howard. I'm assuming that's pronounced Greta.
It is pronounced Greta, yes.
Yeah.
Now, this is Diminutive Dave. He came to me in lockdown. I needed a project last year when the lockdown started, and I was shielding, so couldn't go out. So I've always wanted to, or for a long time, wanted to create miniature scenes with my husband doing ordinary things, but a miniature version. So this is Diminutive Dave. So if you want to move on to the next one.
Can I make an observation?
Yes, of course you can.
No safety glasses on Diminutive Dave.
You're the second person to say that.
With a chainsaw.
Well, yeah, he should have done. You're quite right. I shall tell him off.
How many photos was that?
Well, in total, I did one every day for 91 days.
I meant that particular one.
This particular one. This one was just 2 pictures. I turned my greenhouse into a tabletop studio, and I bought some backgrounds, and I laid out the scene, shot the scene. Then I got my husband to stand just outside the lighthouse, greenhouse, so that he'd be the same sort of lighting conditions, and made sure I used the same aperture so that I got the same type of depth of field in it. And then I just put the 2 together. Having said that, I then added some shadows underneath him. So that was obviously another 2 or 3 layers as well.
Good, okay. Thank you.
And this one was taken in the Forest of Dean when we were able to escape for a day out for a picnic. So again, I just took a picture of David sitting in his chair next to the table, and then a picture of the table. And when I got home, joined them together, adding shadows. Next one. Well, this is my favorite out of the 91 I took. I'm not quite sure why, but I mean, it's a fairly simple way of doing it. You just import the photo and then, but he didn't always fit. So sometimes I'd have to take 3 or 4 different pictures, and occasionally I'd have to use the puppet warp to bend his arms or legs or whatever, just to get if he was slightly too short, or, because as you can see, I've got to have the left hand at the right place for the top of the P, and the right hand has got to be underneath. So I think I had about 7 shoots for this one to get his arms in the correct position.
You do have a patient husband. Woo.
Very extreme. Yes, I do. And the next one, please. This one was quite fun because trying to make the legs look as if he was in water. So I'd make him sit on I think on that he actually sat on his workmate on the patio, and then of course I had to add another layer of water and reduce the opacity so that it looked like his feet were in water. So yeah, it was a lot of fun, and it would take me probably 2 or 3 hours every single day, and it gave me a real purpose in lockdown. It was a lot of fun.
And 91.
I took 91, yeah, for the first one every day for the first 3 months, yeah.
Oh my. Imagination, lady.
Yeah, I've got plenty of that. To be fair though, my husband David, he has got plenty of imagination too. He's not a photographer, but he's got a great eye for a scene, for a
where he wants to pose.
Yeah. Oh, he's great. Yeah, he tends to say, yeah, well, yeah, what about this? What if I do this? Shall I do that?
Oh
so,
my.
yeah, he's very, very good.
Definitely a family issue here.
Okay, right. So we're just going to take a break from the images submitted. As I mentioned earlier, that when Suzanne discovered that David Sage had contributed to a book about Laycock, A Changing Village, I think it's called, she invited him to tell us more about that. So Suzanne, are you going to pass these green over to David now?
Yes. David has it.
Hello.
David.
Right.
And I'll let you do the introduction.
Oh, where is it gone? How's that? Everyone see that?
Yes, we can.
You can. Right. Okay. I met with Suzanne actually in Chippenham Museum, where next October the documentary photography of the year competition is going to be exhibited, which was released yesterday. But anyway, I mentioned to her about the English Laycock, A Changing English Village, and this came about from a project that the Wiltshire and Swindon History Centre were doing on Laycock Unlocked, with a lot of papers that had come from the Abbey. Amongst the papers were a series of images taken by Harold White, and he's a fellow of the Royal Photographic Society. And they are taken around Laycock, and they were taken for a publication for the British Council called English Villagers. And this was sent over to America so that the Americans could see what the English were fighting for and what an English village was like. I worked with a friend, Bob Bray. We digitized the images, and we suggested that we could take images of everyone interviewed with their stories. And this grew into the spending of the summer photographing Laycock to match Harold White's images. And I say match, we knew what we wanted to take, but we didn't want to match them exactly. We wanted to provide a record of Laycock as it was in 2015. About 20 million images are probably taken in Laycock every year, but none are actually kept in the archives. The project that the History Centre had was funded from Heritage Lottery grant, and there was some money left over which funded a book, which the majority of which were given away to the villagers who had taken part in the project, but some were also sold to help a further project for the History Centre. And you can see here a picture of the original book that was done by Harold White. And there's just a picture there of Harold as he looked. He was a member of Great Yarmouth Photographic Club, and it got me talking to them as a club as well. And when they got an archivist, and we talked a bit about Harold White. So it was an interesting project in that respect. So the front page of the book, I don't know, I'll put it up afterwards, with wine on the left-hand side, very similar to the image on the right-hand side. And I say similar because we weren't trying to replicate everything itself. Right, now people will recognise the High Street in Laycock. So all the black and white images are Harold White's in 1940. And the one below, and the chap taking the photograph in the blue with the bag on his back was Bob Bray, and Bob also came around with me taking a number of the images. And the interesting bit as well was when we actually photographed the people that were given stories that would be kept in the Archives at History Centre. And some of these stories were superb. Right, one of the first images we've got here that Harold took was Walter Banks, the builder, sat in the background, and his daughter's husband was Private Dick Cripps and was taken prisoner in Singapore. In his absence, his daughter kept the home going. So that was the image, which we then went and knocked on one of the doors, and this was the McHenry family. They set the image up, and the idea being that we have a similar image over the 2 years. Now, one thing about the McHenry family is that she was born in the village, and she can trace her family back to the 1600s with a direct line back to a chap called Francis Selman. One of her relatives was actually a nun in the Abbey, one of the first nuns in 1232. And another resident of Chelford Manager, Sir Robert Seligman, signed the deeds over to the Abbey back in the 12th century. He later lost his home, which is interesting because he was involved in some skullduggery that ended in murder, and he was hung for the murder. And however, later he was found to be innocent. So it happened in the 12th century, as it happened back in the 50s. Right, we have the Reverend Jeeves here. He was the local vicar, and Harold photographed him at his typewriter. And we went to see a gentleman called Leo Stevens. Unfortunately, Leo passed back last year. When we got there, he was working on his computer, so we used that as an opportunity to carry out a similar image. Leo has lived in the village all his life, and he actually said when we were talking to him that he was invited to Lacock by a family friend, as much as one could be, with Miss Talbot, Matilda Talbot, who owned the Abbey. The National Trust took over the care of the village, and they required a groundsman and a guide. And his father applied for the job, and he was given the job, and they moved from their house in 4 East Street to the Abbey Lodge, just inside the gates. So again, there's another interesting story that's come out of just trying to take these images. And there's the two images together. Right, I'll put this in as a composite because in the top left-hand corner up here was the image taken by Harold, and he took it here from the top of the church spire. Now, this particular image is of Downton Abbey, and I've used it just to illustrate the church and the location. We went into the church. Leo took us up to the bell tower in the church, and we took this image here, turned the top right. As you can see, there's a big difference between the two. Kensak's house on the left up here is up here, but you can't see it because we took the image from this lower level on the church, because to take it at the top of the church meant us getting up through a 1-foot trap door to get up there. And we felt that it wasn't down to us to do that. Harold did it with tripod and Rolleiflex when he was taking these images with. Right, two images put together. On the left-hand side here, we have Postman, yes, Harry Potter, that is his name. His son actually still lived in the village at the time we took the photographs. He was doing the postman's job for about most of the 20th century. We met Pete Jeffries here, who was the postman at the time. He's been doing it for 20 years. So there's a tradition going on, and that's continuing. PC Parker, who's affectionately known as PC Nosy Parker, according to Leo Stevens. So we thought when we were out there one day, we saw Caution Community Policing team were out there, and Nicole Lakes was quite happy to have a photograph taken. So we put the two together, and again, we have something similar to what was going on before, and a total change in the way that things happen in Lacock. Parish Council. Right, on the bottom right-hand corner, we have the original image of the Parish Council back in the 1940s. I've put a couple of red dots on the picture because the gentleman here is Archie Dole, and Archie Dole was the chair of the Parish Council, and his son at the time, sorry, his grandson, Chris, was chair of the Parish Council. But the importance of the two images really is the number of men in the grey suits on the right-hand side, and the mixed and diverse nature of the parish council as it was in 2015. Also the casual dress as well, different fashions. Like this is the George pub as it was in the 1940s. They're both sat by the spit. That image is there today, can be taken. Note the hats, flat caps, and the dimple beer mugs, something you don't often see in a pub today. I will say this was set up, but having said that, it was people at the same table drinking wine. One dimple mug deliberately put in by Andrew to show that we still use dimple mugs. But again, there's ladies in the picture drinking wine, and also there's a tattoo which probably you wouldn't have seen on a female at the time back in the 1940s. So there's the two images together. One of the things that happens regularly all the time now and happened then was flower arranging in the church at St. Cyriac. It was unfortunate, the image on the right hand side was of a lady called Joan Weaver, and she just passed away before we were taking these images. So it would have been great to have spoken to her because she would have been the last survivor from the 1940s. They'd been photographed. And that picture has been used many times in Laycock. And on the left, obviously, you can see that that's carried on today. I put this one in simply because when I took the photograph to show the cricket match, it wasn't until we actually had an exhibition that I noticed that the image on the left-hand side, the field wasn't particularly level, and it would have been great fun for the fielders trying to stop a ball, but on the right-hand side, it's almost bowling green style. And the gentleman on the top right, Anthony Edwards, lives in the village, and he was the groundsman looking after, and he actually lived just behind the cricket ground. And this one was of interest. It's a local bus parked outside what was the blacksmith's place of work, and right next to the George. We did try and take pictures of the bus. We managed it, but I put this one in because it shows the area here, which is now a bus stop. That was where the blacksmith's forge was. And as you can see here on the left-hand side is Fred Burnett, who was a blacksmith in 1944. And that picture and where the furnace is now, that is actually the bus shelter. Now this picture actually was taken by Bob, not by me. Mine wasn't quite as close to it. And that's the same window, and it's now a little antique shop. And as you just walk a little bit further up there, there's a chocolate shop which has got the horse pegs where the horses were tied up. And that's just putting the four together as a group. Mrs. Taylor was serving in a shop in the 1940s. Let me just get me notes on this one just so I can quote it. And the bakery is now owned by Jean Shear. Now, I put this in as well because her daughter actually very kindly did all the design work for the book for free, which was great because it meant that it was great for the villagers to have, although we probably wouldn't have managed to have done it. A lady which we spoke to, Mary Gatley, who again sadly no longer with us, said the first shop which I show was now the bakery, was owned by Mrs. Shop Taylor. They used to call her Mrs. Shop Taylor because there was another Mrs. Taylor who lived in Crook House. She was the local midwife. Further along was Judy Alford. She sold everything, paraffin, shag tobacco, which she cut with a knife. And you had to make sure when you went in that you didn't ask for butter because you didn't ever wash the knife. And there's the two images together. Now, I've put this one in because it's photography related. At the back of the George was the wheelwright, coffin maker and carpenter. And I think this is round about where the restaurant is at the back of the George. And Jack Butler repaired the wheels. And the gentleman on the bottom right-hand corner, who is unfortunately still no longer with us, his great grandfather was Joseph Foden, who made the mousetrap camera, we believe, for Fox Talbot. And that game was made in that place in the village. You've just seen a very small snapshot of what went on. I was given 10 minutes, but I just wanted to give you a flavour of what can be done when you pick up something and you work with other people and you take an awful lot and put it together. And sadly, quite a few of the people that were interviewed by the History Centre are no longer with us, which means a lot of the memories that both held by them and were put into the book wouldn't have been captured if it hadn't have been for the work that was done by an awful lot of volunteers. I enjoyed doing it, and it led on to me doing something else in the village to celebrate 100 years of World War I with making a fantastic poppy train for the church. Now, we titled it as A Changing Village. At the beginning, we worked out when Harold White photographed it, that everything happened within the village. They made their own food, they sold their own food, and people worked in the village. Today, many people use the village to commute from it, but there is still a sense of a village in Laycock. Things have changed, obviously, but I'll leave a thought with you, because most of you have probably been to Laycock. How much has the village actually changed? So I'll leave that with you. But one other little thought, yesterday, no, 2 days ago, I was actually with BBC Countryfile. Sadly, I won't be actually in it, but on the 27th, you might want to tune in to Countryfile on BBC, 27th of December. They're doing a Christmas special on Laycock, and they did filming around the village and a walk around the outside of the Abbey. So that could be quite interesting. So there you go. That was a very quick run through of my book, which had about 100 different images from Harold White, and we took about 1,000 images when we were walking around in the summer, and that's just a snapshot. There you go.
Thank you very, very much, David. It was so interesting. And the fact of the family heritage from one family to the other still around, doing the same job sometimes, it must have been incredible to discover.
Yeah, I saw Rachel the other day when we went into the National Trust shop. We had a quick chat, and she said, well, unfortunately, she said, I've just moved out of the village. It's the first time we've moved out of the village, just up the road to opposite the Bell pub. Her daughters were extras in some of the filming that goes on there. They're now, one maybe just past being a teenager and maybe at university, but I did say to them at the time that their job in 50 years' time was to do something similar to what I've done, to record what Laycock's like later on. Whether they will or not, I don't know, but it's something that needs to be done by somebody, but it won't be me.
That's also a nice thought for any of us who live in a particular area to track some of the older photos and try and match them up, or as you say, not exactly match, but to see how the places have changed, and to put the photos one beside the other. It's just been magical. Thank you.
Yeah, it's surprising because Bob, who did it with me, he used to work as a photojournalist, and he was around when Margaret Thatcher was blown up in the hotel. And his wife phoned him up and said, you know what's going on? He said, no, I'm just getting up, so I'm doing the night shift. Well, Margaret Thatcher's been blown up, so he missed the photograph. And I've asked him to try and put down some of his thoughts in stories that he did when back in the 70s and the 80s, when he was taking images and things he went on. And actually, one of the things he did very well is he was a fake news photographer. He would fill gaps in newspapers with made up images, with stories made up just to fill column inches. So it's surprising when you talk to people what goes on.
Yes, excellent. A good idea. Excellent. We're going to take a 10-minute break. We'll be back at 11:40.
It's going to be nearer 11:45 now.
Okay.
But we should be finished by 12:30, I think.
Well, that's fine. I think everybody's pretty relaxed. What I would like to mention to the people who are with us today is that there are quite a few committee members' terms are up. The Western Region Committee are requesting replacements for the committee itself. So if anyone is thinking of possibly being able to help out, please get in touch. The present committee members will assist and would be beside you in the new role. But as I've mentioned, our terms are coming to an end and we do need replacements. Enjoy your tea or coffee, and we'll see you at 11:45. Now, how could you be hungry for that big slice of cake after that big breakfast, Ken?
It's toast.
Oh, okay, I believe you.
I've got to take the headphones off while I'm eating it.
A good idea. Wouldn't that be a great idea for you to do with your village, Ken? Because you've been there for so long. To match up old photos. I don't know where you can find old photos. Sometimes old postcards. And match up the streets and how things are today.
I don't think Ken can hear you because he's taken his headphones off.
Oh, okay, you're right.
I can hear some very strange noises.
That's me.
Oh, right. Okay.
I had a question on the chat box and I answered it. Sorry.
All right. It's okay. I can't see anything because I've still got my PowerPoint showing on my screen.
I was saying earlier that you've been in your village for so long. Wouldn't that be a neat idea for you to be?
Well, I was thinking about that while David was showing his show, which I thought was great. Thanks, David. Because about 10 years ago, I got involved with, we were finalists in the Village of the Year, the CPRE Village of the Year competition.
Wow.
And we had to do a big presentation for judges. And I got involved in preparing for that. And there's a guy in our village who undertook to collect old photographs because his father was not very well and all his friends were dying, his father's friends. So older generations were dying off, and he wanted to preserve the history of the village. So he's got 4 magnificent volumes
Wow.
of photographs, which I was able to use and display. But yeah, it made me think of David's presentation, made me think exactly of doing similar and photographing the village now and as it was. I mean, they used to
matching photos. Wouldn't that be fun?
Well, there were 12 pubs in the village at that time that he's got pictures of.
12 pubs.
Yeah.
How many churches?
And then the village probably maybe had 300 or 400 residents. Now it's 1,600, and there's one pub.
You could probably find also some relatives of people who had.
Oh yeah. There's lots of relatives. There's families that go back hundreds and hundreds of years in the village.
Wow.
Yeah. I think it'd be a great idea to do. And so, David, I may well nick it.
That's all right. Not a problem. I must admit that I think the frightening thing is if you don't do it quickly, that book that we did, there was about 20 odd people that we used that gave information in volunteer stories.
And what was that
And
about
nearly
them?
half of them had died already, which is sad. But if it hadn't been done in 2015, we would have lost all those memories of those people that lit up what we did in the book. And I must admit, I don't live in Laycock, I live in Chippenham, but it's great because you're still there.
Yeah, I'm listening.
Yeah, it's great because I go into the village now. I'm surprised how many people I actually know, and I volunteer in the Abbey as well. So I actually feel as though I'm a Laycock person, although I don't live there.
You talk about it as you do have a love of the village.
Yeah, it's one of the things that I was talking to the BBC Countryfile director and that with people over the weekend. They were talking about photographs in Laycock. Said it's darn difficult to photograph in Laycock because there's so many cars about, which they found out on Friday morning when they were going around trying to do things. And there was one little incident in East Street where they were photographing some rooftops, obviously for just a shot within the thing. And one of the chaps leant out of the window that lived there, and he gave the photographer, the cameraman, a mouthful. You can't photograph my roof, blah blah blah. And yeah, it was an interesting little scene went on.
Put them in tune with reality.
Well, yeah, but actually, Leo Stevens, who I spoke about, he lived opposite the Tithe Barn, and he set up the Residents Association, and he felt that you either liked Leo or you didn't. He was a bit Marmite. I loved Leo. I thought he was excellent, nice chat, and he said it as it was. People would photograph in the Tithe Barn, and he would always be having flash images going off in his windows. And he would get people staring in. So it was like living in a human zoo in Laycock, he said. So that's how the village has changed to what it was like when he was living there back in the 40s. So yeah, it's interesting.
It's 11:45 if we want to move ahead.
Okay. Are you sharing my screen now?
We have a picture of a bird bath.
Yeah. Okay. Right. So
which was Greta's
Greta's last one. Yeah. So now we move on to John Lipinski. John, are you with us?
Yes, good morning.
Talk us through, please.
Okay, right, this during lockdown, it was a bit restricted what we were doing, so it's in the studio type work. And first one you see here, I was playing with, obviously, water reflections. This is one of many. The difficulty here was getting the glass and the water and the reflections and the crossover lined up. Oops, flashing away.
Sorry.
That's okay. And of course, also the problem there was getting reflections from windows or whatever that was drawn onto the glass on the bottle. The bottle was actually green, so I redid that in Affinity and put a little bit of a background in there as well. So there did quite a few of these playing around reflections, which are quite interesting and fun to do. That's my thing.
I see the bottle is empty, John.
Sorry?
I see the bottle is empty.
Oh, yes, there's not many full bottles in our house. That was one. I'll do Chris Whitty is next slide, please.
Yeah, I'm just trying to get rid of this bar. It wasn't there before, and I don't know why it is now.
No bar on this side.
Sorry?
I can't see any bar problem.
Oh, okay. All right.
Oh, right. This was, again, it was a bit of some challenges for myself. They're just doing black on black. So I've got a black plastic shiny sheet and the black container, the cocoa, and water. The sheet you see is also picking up just a slight bit of lightness to distinguish it from the product, and the water was catching the light around the edges. that was trying to control that with lights and what have you. But again, it was just a fun thing to do. And the longer you try to do it, better it always seems to come.
And quite unique black on black.
Yeah, it's was a bit of a problem, like a black cat in a coal cellar, but black on black was a challenge, and set it for myself and did it. Again, it was a lockdown thing, but I enjoy doing the studio stuff anyway.
Yeah, very well done that. Next.
Yeah, next, yes. Ah, right. So, yes, this is St Mary's in Longcott. Church is actually lit up more on my, it was anyway, but anyway, so there it is, and it's doing star trails. This was wide angle lens, 12mm and f2.8 manual focus, but luckily, as it was pitch black, you can't really focus on anything, so I just set it to infinity on the dial and set myself up on the tripod, and then walked across it, because I was on the other side of the road, so I had to cross the road and then walk around the churchyard with the torch, shining it up at the building and the birch trees, which you can see there. What people thought of me, I've no idea, but I wasn't arrested or anything, so that's how I carried on. And this was done with an Olympus, Olympus M1, Mark II, and I put it onto what I call live composite. So once
How long was that exposure, John?
that was, I've got it written down here somewhere, let me think. I believe it was about 10 seconds, but it was for about 25 minutes together. So the live composite feature on the Olympus will just sit there taking photographs at the setting that you was in. So I did a couple of practice ones first. And then you just leave it there and let it go on. The only problem I had was, as I was on the other side of the road, the problems there with oncoming cars going past in front of me with red lights and white lights, and then people out walking their dogs with a torch or something like that. So I had my hat, which whenever I heard a car coming, I used to just put it in front of the lens so that it was photographing nothing. And then when the coast was clear, I would remove my hat and let it carry on. So it took this one was about 25 minutes.
Interesting, thank you.
Okay, next one. This was a few weeks back, middle of September. No, middle of November, beg your pardon. About the 16th, somewhere around there. This is down at Savernake. Don't know if you know Savernake. Or as you go down there, and the woods, it's a lot of deciduous, and they were turning, but I think I missed the best of them because it was raining. But this was a rare sunny day, and so I went there with various wide-angle lenses and telephotos and whatnot, and did a selection of photographs, of which this is just one. But there are also much fungus down there to take as well, but I didn't quite agree. So that was the Savernake Forest, not too far away, down just south of Marlborough. That's my 4.
Okay, thanks, John. The next few are mine. And before I show you the first one, I just want to give a little bit of background. You might remember, if you were there, one of the early Zoom presentations we had was from Michelle Whitmore, who showed us how she makes creative designs from pretty standard images. I seem to remember the example she used was a dockside, which was just a sort of piece of metal, really, and she made some creative stuff from it. Well, I really enjoyed that session and took what Michelle was doing and played about with it. So the first image you're going to see, I think, if I remember rightly, was a small patch of flowers in a field, which I turned into this. And the way Michelle showed us how to do it was by using all different filters within Photoshop. So I kind of played about, and I remember one of Michelle's parting words were, actually, you can combine any sort of filters, any of the filters together and do some different things. And so this is what I've done. And so I showed this to my wife, and she said, oh God, that reminds me of this vivid dream I had last night that was just weird and flashing and all over the place, colors. And so that's what gave me the idea of calling it Dream Bubbles. And so I used all the different filters within Photoshop. They're all the basic, but combine some of them together, and it's amazing how different you can make things. So the next one was this. That originally was a piece of tree bark. You'll notice that one's got a frame on it. So they can be mounted landscape or portrait and framed. And the reason it's got a frame on it is because actually I've sold that one to a restaurant in Cirencester, and an Indian restaurant called the Sultan. Superb Indian food if you like it. And along with, and they've actually hung this portrait along with these two. Now the one on the right I know was just a bit of rusty pipe originally, and I just took that image, or bit of that image, played about with it. If I'm honest, I don't remember the source photo for the one on the left, but again, that's one of the ones they bought. And I just, as I say, do different things with the filters. So things like using wave or twirl or pixelate, and
the colors are so vivid.
Well, I do also process them afterwards with more standard Photoshop tools. So I do add to the vivacity and the color with saturation and different hues, but literally the same image, the same source image could turn into infinite different finished images. I'd always make them come to an oval shape using one of the things that Michelle showed us, polar coordinates, I think. So yeah, so that one and these two are hanging on a wall in a restaurant in Cirencester, and the owners tell me they get lots of positive comments, so very pleased about that. And then just to show you another one, a totally different style, I think, but the same kind of processes, and producing a very, very different type of image, but sort of sits comfortably with the others, I think. So, yeah, thank you, Michelle.
Maybe we should ask Michelle for next year another workshop. It'll be fun.
Yeah, well, thanks for the idea, and I've had real fun playing with it, and obviously I'm very pleased that I've made some sales from it.
Great.
Okay, next is Liz Bug.
Hi. Well, normally I go away overseas somewhere, but of course with COVID I've not been allowed to, but I've always fancied going to Blackpool. So I went to Blackpool in October to see the lights. This is a tram. There's two of them. One's of this train and another one's of the boat, and they go up and down the track, and you can take, you can actually ride on it, but I prefer to take the photos. So you go to next, please. These, at the North Shore, they have these they're tableaus, they call them. And with this one, the Indians and the totem pole all light up gradually. So at one time it'll all be black, and then the Indians will all keep coming and lighting up. Next, please. Oh, this is just I went for a walk and I thought It was quite nice doing it in black and white with Blackpool. And this row of the buildings with the arches, there's a whole row of them. So they're great for taking photos. I had a day on my own walking up there. I think I walked 6 miles backwards and forwards along the beach and everything, taking pictures of the architect and everything. It was really good.
It looks like you're the only one there.
Well, yeah, I was really. Seemed to be. Is up next. Oh, that's another one of the tableaus where they light up and do things. This, I found that was more interesting than the lights, because there's about 6 miles of lights in Blackpool, but these tableaus were the more interesting one. The others all hang on the lampposts and across the street. Next.
Are these lights specifically for preparing for Christmas, or are they there all year round?
No, they're there from, usually it's only been 6 weeks, but because of COVID, this year they've gone on to January. So they're from September to January. And I've noticed that next year they're going to do the same. So that's going on from like September to January. All these lights. And then in front of the tower, they have all lights on that, and the lights change on the tower and the big wheel. It's quite interesting going there just to take that.
Mm-hmm.
Next. Right, this is an unusual sight I've found out. I didn't know what it was. I was walking along the beach with the tide out, and there's this like coral, and I won't say what it was, but what I've looked up, I found out that it's a rare sight and not many people see it. It's there was somebody who lived in Spain. They came over. He was like 75 years old, and he said he's never seen it before. And it's, if I read you what it is, the mounds are honeycombed reefs formed by a large group of worms. It's a filter feeder that extends its tentacle into the water when the tide is in, catching floating particulars of plankton. And that was really, and there's, oh yeah, I've got loads of pictures of this. It was really interesting just walking underneath there and seeing all this. It looked like coral when you first saw it.
Wow.
I think that's it, isn't it? I believe.
Really good. Thank you.
Yeah. Thanks.
Thanks, Liz. Yeah, that's not one I've heard of before.
No.
So on to Mary Auckland. Just one image from Mary. Mary, you with us?
Yes, I'm there. I've woken up. Yes. This was again a sort of result of lockdown happening, and I'd exhausted flowers and so on, and textures. I sort of took everything that didn't move, everything from bathroom tiles to, and I think the background on this one was a paving slab in the garden, and then coloured, obviously. And the other thing as a result of was delving a bit deeper into Photoshop. So I've got a series of these, and basically what they consist of is a background, which, as I say, I think this was a lichen paving stone, and then coloured. So I've got the blue background there. And then these buds and seed pods and so on that were hanging on my, oh, sorry, I haven't put this video on, that were just on the sort of left over and available if I went out for walks. So I made them into brushes so that I could place them exactly where I wanted and could colour them, size them, angle them, and so on. So this is a series of layers, starting with that blue background, and then going from a fairly dark blue, the darker ones sort of, so that they would look as though they're in the background, and then another layer coming forward, lightening the blue a little bit and putting more brushes on, and so on. And so there were about 7 layers, I think, with these, and finally coming through to white and almost white with the allium heads. So it's a sort of, it's literally just a number of layers with the brushes. And then there was a bit of a sort of empty space up on the top there. So I went out and we've got a rookery fairly near us and took some birds, made those into brushes and placed those in that sort of space at the top. So this is really one of many series. This one happens to be a middle one of a triptych, but the triptych actually wouldn't fit when I sent it to you. It started to pixelate. So the other ones have very sort of architectural plants like teasels and that sort of thing for the white, and then all these varying plants coming forward with different colours, just to make it's fairly sort of graphic, but it was just trying out some different things in Photoshop. And as you say, as we all did, we used things that were near us or around us, staying at home. So that's really, yeah.
It looks like a painting, doesn't it?
Yes, it's sort of very graphic, really.
Mm.
But it was just, yeah, trying something different because, as we all have, we've been spending more time at home and wanted to do things which were more.
So there have been some positives of this horrible lockdown area. We've all discovered a little corner of something new.
Yes, it's the positive side in a way, lockdown, because we've tried different things. And as I say, I have a series of these in different colours and different backgrounds and so on, because once you've got all those brushes, they're quite easy to build up. And because you've got them on different layers, you can keep changing them so that they have some sort of, you can change the overall effect, or you think, oh, I've got too much in there or too little or whatever. You can keep changing them because you can go layer by layer. And that's it for me.
Thank you.
Really effective.
Welcome.
Okay, on to another Mary Braddock.
Hi, I hope you can hear me. Can you
Yes.
hear me, Ken? Yeah,
Yes,
oh, that's
perfectly.
fine.
Yeah.
I've got a new headset and I wasn't sure that it was working.
Oh,
But
it's
that's
working
good.
well.
Okay, so it appears that my lockdown's been completely different to everybody else's because we actually moved house and then had a lot of decorating and work to do and builders and things. So I'd just done my LRPS literally as the first lockdown came in. I think I was on the first digital LRPS. So and I was just so excited to have passed that. And with the move, I think, it's weird because your motivation seems to get lost in the busyness of what you're doing. But we moved to the heart of Somerset, and we're living in a village where we've got the levels on one side and then a sort of a farming community on the other side of the hill. And I was out one morning quite early, and it was a sort of really hot week in the summer, and I came across this little tractor, and it's a little Renault, very old Renault tractor with absolutely no protection from the sun. And the guy who's got it is a traditional thatcher, and he goes around repairing roofs in the village that we've moved to and also in the wider community. But he has these very small fields where he traditionally harvests the wheat and then stacks them in stoops. So I thought this picture sort of got an idea of the cutting, but also the start of the stooks, but the little tractor there forming part of the scene with the little umbrella stuck on the top there. If you want to go on to the next one, what I'm doing is trying to find the local area and get to know it. It's very different when you move. When you've been somewhere for 30 years, it becomes a local patch, and it's easy to go back to places. But when it's new, it's just finding these areas. And a lady I met on a morning walk said to me about the bluebells in the wood. And I went to this wood, and sure enough, it's a north-facing wood looking out over West Sedgemoor. And the wood was full of bluebells, aconites and primroses all out at the same time. But I came out of the wood and came into this field, which turns out to be a wildflower meadow. And I went back several times through the summer, but it was this picture that got me, because although the marbled white here is sitting on a knapweed, the purple background is wild betony. and the field was just completely purple with wild betony, and it was just such an amazing picture. And I took this using the macro lens and getting the background blurred, but it was all completely blurred. It's not a composite, it's just a sort of very straightforward image, trying to get the butterfly sort of positioned in the right place so it wasn't going to be inhibited by anything. But of course, it's taken fairly early in the morning because as soon as it warms up, the butterflies are on the move. So I was very lucky this particular morning that the air was nice and still, and everything was sitting really nice and quietly on the various flowers. The other thing about this meadow, it's absolutely full at this particular time of silverwash fritillaries, and it was really exciting to move from a fairly busy area in Surrey to this area in Somerset where we're so rural. But moving on to the next one, it's taken in the same area a bit later, and this is a migrant hawker. And I walked into the corner of that meadow with my husband one evening, and the air was thick with dragonflies. I can't begin to tell you how many there were, and we just stood and watched them in awe as they flew all around us and flew at us, looked at us, flew away. And we went down on a slightly few days later, and the hedgerows were just full of these migrant hawkers. They'd landed and they were warming up in the morning sun. It was quite late, sort of like end of September, early October, so it was sort of autumn where these creatures slow down and they need the sun to warm them up. And this migrant hawker was just sitting there, or one of them, and I quite liked the sun on the background, and the light illuminating the creature as it's warming up, and just showing the different details on dragonflies. I'm sure people know far more about them than I do, but as they age, so their colours change. So it can be quite tricky, and that's where the photography comes in to help you identify them. And I think I've got one more.
Yep.
So this is the River Parrot, and you may remember back in 2014 the terrible floods of Somerset, where for weeks there was several feet of water right across thousands of acres of the county. And the River Parrot is one of the main reasons for that flood. And it hadn't been managed particularly well. And since those floods, they've drained it and they've put in new pumps. But I'm reading an old book about the levels, and you know what? I don't think mankind is ever going to beat the wetness of this area and the way it's a floodplain. The River Parrot runs for 11 miles towards the estuary at Steart, and it drops merely 1 inch per mile. So this river is not moving very fast. And of course, when the floodwater comes down off the hills, like the Blackdowns and the Poldens, these rivers just fill and overflow. And if the tide's coming in, the water just doesn't go anywhere. And then because of the lack of the sort of the drop, the altitude drop, it just stays, and it takes weeks for it to go. But I quite like the early morning light, and I thought, oh, there might be a sunrise this morning. So I got up and went out down to the river, and I liked the levels of the mist here and the light coming in behind. The bushes of the side of the river still in shadow here, and to me it just sort of gives a feeling of depth of those Somerset levels during better times when they're not in flood. So thank you. I hope you've enjoyed them.
Thanks, Mary, very much.
Very much enjoyed. Thank you.
Okay, the next section is from Michael Isles. Michael can't be with us this morning. He emailed me this morning to say he's gone down over this weekend with a bit of man flu, and you wouldn't like to hear him spluttering and sneezing through any descriptions, and in any event, he's going to try and get some sleep. So it falls to me to describe where these were from Michael's words. He went for a walk around Golden Valley near Charlford village. I'm not entirely sure where it is. Some of you may well know it. And the first two images, this one and the next one, are both from that walk on a bright, it looks like, sunny, crisp morning. I presume that is the Chalford village. And from this vantage point, he's told me he just really liked the play of light on the autumn leaves. And the next two were from an Royal Photographic Society organised walk in Birmingham. And both these pictures coming up, well, this one and the next one, are a building called Grand Central in the newly redeveloped, well, not newly, it's some years now, but centre of Birmingham. And this adjoins New Street Station. And obviously the reflection is the key here. And in this one, I think it's the shapes and that bird standing out against the light background with the subtle reflections again of most of the sky this time. All these pictures were taken on Nikon D7000 with a Tamron 18-200 lens. Michael also says he's been photographing since 1978 and he's never showed pictures to anybody. And talked about them. So he was quite looking forward to this morning, but very sorry that he couldn't make it. He does have an Instagram page. If what you've seen makes you want to see some more of Michael's images, and it's just simply Michael Isles, as spelt on the right-hand side. 38 is his Instagram number or Instagram address. Okay, so a couple of images now from Neil Buckland, who I know is with us.
Right,
Neil.
yeah, you can hear me? Yeah, I guess. I hope. Hang on.
Yes, we can hear you.
Whoa, I've turned myself up. Good. Okay, so I've got a couple of street photographs. Well, as you can see, they're titled, but what I like to do is not actually tell you what I intended or anything about it, just ask you what you think you see. Anybody?
Frosty footprints?
Is it footprints?
Yes, it looks like painted footprints. Like someone stepped in paint and then stepped on pavement.
Yeah, okay, well that's exactly what there is. It's outside a local surgery. There was a mysterious paint spill and some sixth form boys thought it was great to accidentally tread in them. But what I saw was something that reminded me of the kind of ancient footprint images that archaeologists find in ancient mud beds.
Like Bigfoot.
Well, I was thinking more like the origins of man.
Oh.
Leaky discovery, that kind of thing. And the leaves it was a blowy day, leaves are coming down, and it was time of COP22, and so I thought the two together, the pairing, told a little story. So hence life signs.
I like the idea of the leaves to give us a proportion to the prints.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, that's it.
Next one, Neil.
Yep. And again, I've given it a title, but again, I'd ask you what you see. Anybody?
Is it taken through a window?
Or is it a reflection on a window, or is taken through? Okay.
It's through a window.
Is it more than one photo?
No, it's one photo. So what you're seeing is this is in Wells Market at Wells in Somerset, It's a restaurant just off the market. So I was wandering around taking photos, and I happened to see this young woman sat like that. That's what caught my eye. And so before any, I even thought about it, I just took the photo. And what my approach to photography is to take and then see what surprises it produces. The surprise for me was that she was looking at an iPhone. But the other interesting surprise was how much like she was Da Vinci's Madonnas. When I say Madonnas, he painted more than one Madonna, so hence the Madonna of the iPhone. I thought she had quite an Italian look, particularly the Da Vinci Madonna, and it happened. So it's irrelevant really, but she happened to be in the restaurant called Ask Italian. So who knows? She could be Italian, but I just thought the posture is interesting. She's obviously engrossed in whatever's going on. Maybe somebody's late, who knows? There's a story there. But I liked the posture of the right hand, which, in some ways she was talking with her hand. So,
I love the mysterious feel you have because it's through the window.
Yeah. Yeah.
Is it reversed? Is it reversed?
No, that is as it was. It's a colour photo, but you can see it's monotone. I preferred that because it gave this, more textured appearance. Again, sort of with hints of a canvas.
Good street photography.
Yeah, thank you. That's really one of the things I'm trying to get into more, but you can only take when they're there. My wife and I did a course with the RPS recently on exactly that, and we're going to do more of that. We just bought Fujifilm X-T3, and we're going to go and sit places and take street photography. When my eye recovers, that is, an unhappy accident on the way. But so in the new year, you may see a couple of waifs and strays sat on a street corner with a camera, and you may be in it. Who knows?
Okay, can I move on now, please, Neil?
Yeah, please do.
Yeah, thank you. And Philip, another one of Savonake.
Hi there, can you hear me? Hello?
Yes.
Hello, Philip.
Yes, we hear you.
Right, okay. I wasn't sure whether I was actually seeing all this Zoom, but anyway, yes, it's a large studio, not studio, it's an exhibition piece really, and done on a kind of epic scale, comprising 7 frames of a 5 exposure HDR, so it's whatever 7 by 5 is, 35. And working on that sort of scale, actually part of the problem is the amount of detail that appears. So I used a Topaz simplified filter on a setting called Dust, which has kind of taken out some of the detail to make it more graphic. That's about all I have to say about that, really. Another Savonake picture. I love Savonake. Savonake and Dartmoor, my 2 places. Okay.
Thank you for that. So what about this one?
Right. I put this in just because I did it very recently, and I usually use a Canon 5D Mark III, and it's quite a heavy beast actually, although it's lighter by far than some DSLR cameras, but still heavy for me, especially lugging it around, and the big tripod and the big panoramic head that I tend to carry around with me. So I got myself a little Sony mirrorless camera, thinking that it would be a compromise between having it with me, maybe at a loss of some quality, but I was stunned to find, and side-by-side comparisons, that it really is not a great deal to compare, despite being a small frame. We've got such good raw processing software these days. Yeah, so I just put it in because it's recent more than anything else. It's also where I live. And I put in my notes that the further you're up in Glastonbury, the better it looks than anyone that knows Glastonbury. Although it is my hometown, so I should be slightly more loyal, I suppose.
And so
yeah, go ahead.
Did you set the settings for it, or was that on automatic with a?
Oh no, it's an HDR 5 frames, two EVA
right.
parts, set on a tripod. Cars waited to get past behind me. I thought it was a deserted road with no traffic on it. It's amazing, isn't it? There's no such thing as the deserted road with no traffic on it.
Sods law, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, and this one.
Yeah, that's in Dartmoor. It's Susan Stone Circle. It's quite close to the road, so I didn't have to carry my camera too far. It's an HDR 5 exposure photograph. I did it on 2 HDR interpretations with photomatics, one for the sky, one for the ground. Use soft masking to get them all into one picture. There we are. That's pretty self-explanatory, I guess.
Is this the Canon or the Sony?
No, this is the Canon, because my camper van's parked just outside. So I didn't have to carry it more than a few hundred yards. I used to carry it miles, but I'm getting on a bit these days, so I don't carry it so far as I used to. Again, it's a stitch panorama.
Mm.
And this one is it's a nature walk at Glastonbury Abbey, and it's that magical mixture of frost, fog, and sunlight, which is one of those special moments. I'm very lucky to be able to see that. And it's just, I thought something incredibly magical about it, really. One wants to walk through there to some other world.
Yeah. Where does it lead to, I wonder?
Nowhere particularly.
Exactly. But that's the wonder.
In fact, ever since COVID, they've got a barricade just the other side of it saying this walk is dangerous in case you catch COVID in the process. Okay. Lovely.
Thanks, Philip.
Someone asked where the stone circle is. It's called Susans. If you look it up, you'll find out where it is. It's quite close to Two Bridges. Or is it Post Bridge? I always get the two mixed up.
Thank you, Philip. We move on to Rachel Hunt. Rachel, are you with us?
Sorry, I had to unmute. This, I don't know whether it brings back anything to Suzanne, is Algonquin Park in Canada. And this appealed to me. It was a still water where there were lots of these tree stumps. What had happened to the trees, I have no ideas, but I just liked the reflection that was being created. The water, as you can see at the back, had wind creating the movement, but in front of that stump, it was just perfectly still. And I really just happened to like the reflection. I'd stayed with some friends over in Canada, and they took me there for a few nights, and it was just something that caught my eye. All my photos are totally unadulterated, no photoshopping, no stitching, nothing. It is as you see.
Straight out the camera.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
In fact, sorry, I've mislabeled this one. It's actually in Jodhpur, not Jaipur.
Ah.
I had seen this gentleman on a previous visit. Every 2 years, we used to take sixth formers out to India, and we were going around. It's something like the Maharangare Fort, and out in Rajasthan, the turbans are totally different. They're dyed, they're tie-dyed, and there's something in the region of about 12 feet long that they wind around their heads, and it was just, I don't know, there's something about his eyes, the way he was sat. I'm sure he's there to try and earn money, but I got away with just taking his photo from behind somebody, I think behind one of the students. And it's just one, I just love his face.
Just a quick aside, don't suppose you did your tour with a company called MSG Tours, who do school tours?
No, we organised this ourselves.
Ah, right.
So that book everything through ourselves and decide where we're going to. And it's a 3-week trip. 2 weeks are spent traveling and 1 week is spent doing charity work at a leprosy center, which obviously leprosy now is on the way out. And then we also work with the rag pickers in Delhi, the Asia Deep Foundation.
Okay.
But
And here we
the
go.
detail in that gentleman's hair is incredible.
It is, isn't it? It just was one of those that I actually fell in love with, sort of his face and the detail that he had. And it's looking at his eyes, I'm sure there's an awful lot behind them that he could tell.
Yes, that comes across.
Okay. And this one?
Another trip to India. And we took a boat ride on the Ganges. We were at Varanasi, and this must probably be about 5:30, 6 o'clock in the morning. And it was just a stunning boat ride, and it just appealed to me, the reflection of the sun on the water. And at that stage, the water is relatively clean. There's not too much floating around. We did see a few dead bodies in the water, and wasn't particularly pleasant. But it was the calm, the mist that you can see just above the land, and obviously another boat coming into view of people out there for this experience.
Golden hour.
Yeah, it really was. I'm very calm. This is taken along the disused railway between it was the Taunton to, I don't know, Chard railway line. And I just happened to be out for an autumnal walk. And what do they say? 3s and 5s, never an even number. And I just happened to see these teasels on the walk. And as you can see, you've got the detail of the heads, and then of course the thorns down the stems. So it just appealed to me. That one I put in into a photograph. My father was a member of Probus, and I put it in for their photographic competition, and that one did actually win me. Or I won with that one.
Was it taken with a macro lens?
Suzanne, it was taken with my Canon PowerShot. I think I probably did put it on macro, but that's basically a point and click camera. I mean, obviously I've got more powerful equipment these days, but that was literally, I'm going out for a walk with friends, and I put a camera in my pocket or around my neck, and it's one of those, it was just a happy shot or a lucky shot.
Yeah, it's lovely.
Thank you.
Congratulations. So
Thank you.
we move on with to Robin Johnson.
Oh, hello, everybody. Mine's a bit of an eclectic mix, I'm afraid. This is probably one of the first photographs I took after I was stopped regular employment. And it actually started up the idea of a little project. I've always been fascinated by doors, particularly in the Mediterranean and Italy, because they have this incredible distressed look, which looks like they may have been neglected for years and years and years, but they haven't. So this was the first picture of my first ever project, which unhappily, because of COVID, hasn't finished yet. But if you'd like to move on. This is the photograph the one I was brave enough to enter into a competition in Bath just after I joined them. It's the Millennium Square one. I'm sure lots of people have got something like this, but I particularly like the softened images of the two children playing in the area around the sort of wet walls in Millennium Square. The picture is sharp, as you can see from the lines, but I particularly like the vagueness. It sort of started to attract me, and you'll see with the next couple I start getting a bit more into vagueness and abstract looks. So could you move it on, Ken?
Yeah, I think the next one isn't a vague abstract.
Oh well, there you go. There you go.
It
happens when you don't prepare it properly.
I'm guessing it's taken in Milan.
Oh yeah, that's a different one. I apologise. I can do sharp pictures as well as vague pictures. That's the point.
Is it Milan?
No, actually not. It's the Galeries Lafayette in the Champs-Élysées.
Oh, right.
And it was taken in the January when we just before we went into lockdown. And it's quite mad place. It was the French equivalent of the January sales. It's absolutely packed out. And I just like the range of colors, and they've enclosed the dome at the top there, the blue glass dome. It's got a building outside of it now to protect it, and it's lit between the outer and the inner. It's quite a dramatic effect, actually. And I quite like the way, and I've never quite figured out why, but it has that look of a diorama around where the people are, sort of, it seems too sharp, but there's nothing been mucked around with it apart from the white balance and a bit of cropping. And that's just the way it came out of the camera. And a sort of memory of our time when we could travel a bit more freely than we can today. So if you move on, I think the last one is a bit of a weird, yeah, this is my weird one. I got sort of into deliberate camera movement, and most of the time you sort of start off that in straight lines. And I just wondered what would happen if you started turning the camera instead of moving it in a straight line. And not unsurprisingly, it's a matter of getting the still time and the turning time right. Otherwise you get just swirls with no detail, or you get something that looks like you've had a touch of the tremors when you were taking the photograph. This one I think worked out quite well, because with a wide angle lens that the tree trunk is relatively sharp, although not straight, I admit. But I like the swirls around it, and that sort of just talks about my like of things that are a bit weird and strange. Anyway, that completes my 4, I think, Ken.
I'm not going to ask if your liking of weird and strange extends beyond photography.
Well, you can ask, but I refuse to comment on the grounds that I may incriminate myself.
Thanks, Rowan. And moving on, Rosemary Finch.
Good morning, everybody. Hi. I'd just like to say that we've seen some amazing images this morning, so it's lovely, the show and tell session. My life is somewhat restricted because I'm full-time carer for my very disabled husband, who has dementia as well. So, but we do go out. I try and take him out quite a bit, take him in his wheelchair. And this was just a couple of months ago. For my birthday, I bought a little second-hand digital camera, which was converted for infrared. And so I've been having some fun with that when we've been out walking. And this was in Worcester, where you can walk out to this point and then back all along the river. But I think because of the conditions that day, the infrared effect has worked quite well. I don't know much about the technology, but it's a 720 filter. And for a very old camera, which has been converted, I'm having fun with it. Next one. This one is my attempt at some sort of bit of abstract photography. One of our drives out, we go down to Lydney Docks, and I don't know whether any of you have been there, but yeah, it's an incredible place for photography, because the tide, even when it looks like the tide is in, so we're like Westbury, when you get to Lydney Docks, often the tide is out and you have these wonderful sandbanks. And it's just fascinating. I usually park up and have a walk along, and you know, this is just a group of seagulls, but I wanted to sort of create this very soft effect. And again, I'm not very clever with Photoshop. It's very much a trial and error, but I just like this sort of soft image. Next one.
I really like that one.
Thank you. And this is another of the things I like to do. I don't honestly get a lot of time for working on images these days, but again, I do like soft pastel images, and I'm very much really just a landscape girl. But in lockdown, like many of us, it helped us to explore new things, and I just like the colours. I tend to use topaz quite a bit, but I'm not very skilled in it, and I don't think I could reproduce them too well. But I love playing. So
that little glimpse of the interior of the rose on the right, the
Yes.
centre, just makes that for me.
Yeah. Thank you. Yeah, I think they were actually roses from my garden as well, so which was quite nice. And this is another one down at Lydney Docks. And I have done obviously a black and white treatment on this one, but I love the detail in all those sandbanks and rivulets. And it's really quite fascinating when you go down there. You know, this was just another view that day, but I hope you like them. I think that's all of them.
No, they're lovely.
Thank you.
Thanks, Rosemary. And on to Suzanne. I know you're here, Suzanne. Can't hear you though.
Oh, I haven't spoken. This was taken actually at around noon time, and it just made me feel that it was a different atmosphere that you would expect at noon. So that's why I took that one, and I did convert it to black and white. Next one.
Is that in Portishead?
No, it's not. I think it's Burnham-on-Sea.
Oh, okay.
This is Portishead.
Yeah, I've seen it.
Yeah, we have many sculptures in Portishead. And this one actually should be 90 degrees to the right. I flipped it. The man is sort of swimming in the sky, but I flipped it so that he's hanging from the sculpture, and that's the apartment building behind it. So that is Portishead, and I converted it to black and white as well. Next one. That is the National Arts Centre in Ottawa in the wintertime. It's a picture as is. I didn't, they project whatever presentation there is at the time on the entire building and all the way down the street. So I thought that was interesting. Next one. That's just a shadow on pavement that I found intriguing. I am really drawn to architecture and shapes, and that's where I seem to be heading. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And finally, Vincent. So 4 great images coming up to finish. You with us, Vincent?
Okay. Okay, I wanted to show something that I haven't shown in a little while, and you can probably tell from my accent, I'm not from here. We moved here from Northern Virginia, and these are all in the Northern Virginia and Washington, DC area. So I used to walk down this alley, and it had this gate. I think it was an architectural firm, but it might have been a law firm. And 3 times I passed there, it was dull gray days, and it didn't really look very nice. And then this one day I walked past, and the sun had lit up the building behind, because this is north facing, lit up the building behind and gave a nice bit of light into this entryway for whatever business it was. And just caught my eye, and I thought it was something. It caught my eye the first couple of times, and I said, you know, I want to get back on a day when it's nice. And so finally I got there. So next one. And this is, I went out with a group. I used to do I used to organize photo outings through meetup.com, and we went to a top of a mountain in the Appalachian Mountains. Right under where that big burst of light is Greenbank, West Virginia, one of the electron telescopes that searches for planets and whatnot. But from this vantage point, we went up there to photograph the sunset and then do star trails at night. But the weather wasn't with us, so this storm came through, and it was really interesting. This is 5 different layers. So basically, I took, I had my camera open for 30 seconds. If lightning went, that was great. It captured it. If not, it didn't. So I used f/16 because that's a good place for doing lightning. And then I combined 5 different layers in Photoshop. And I was pretty happy to get this. And a lot of people thought I was crazy because before I finished making the photos that I wanted, I was sitting on a guardrail with this thunderstorm coming and on the top of a mountain. So everybody had already run to their cars, and I was still sitting there making photos.
Well, it was worth it.
So next one, please.
Yeah, I love that.
Yes,
it paid off really well. Wow.
That sky is amazing.
It was really neat being there. And then under the bleachers, our 2 boys used to, one played, one ran track and the other one played in the local band, but they needed physicals before the season could start. And we were in a large gymnasium, just the queue going, winding around, and everybody getting their checkups. And I noticed this under the bleachers and that wall, and students were walking past, and I kept trying to capture them, and they were all blurry because my shutter speed wasn't fast enough. And I was about to tell my son to do exactly what this little guy is doing and walk towards that red door when he came in and did exactly what I wanted. So it was kind of nice that nobody walked in the background while he was there, and I got the shot that I envisioned just looking at it.
Perhaps you should explain bleachers, because that's very much an American term.
Bleacher, yeah, it's the risers in a gymnasium where people sit.
Yeah.
I don't know what you call them here.
Yeah.
But
I know what you mean.
But it's like the stadium seating.
Yeah. So you have the bleacher seats in your ball stadiums, don't you? Or baseball stadiums, and anyway.
Yes.
Tiered
so this
seating.
is inside of a gymnasium, and what happens here? Yeah. So what happens here is this whole section can move back and go flush against the walls.
Oh, wow.
And when they want to use the gymnasium for gym class and that kind of thing, and if they have a basketball game or something else, they had these out a bit so that people could sit down while they're, you know, if family members wanted to sit while their students are going through the queue. So
I love that photo.
Just temporary seating, really.
Really nice.
Thank you. And then this was another one from one of the meetups I organized in Columbia, Virginia. There is something called the Truck Graveyard, and it's owned by a gentleman. It's been owned by his family for years, but basically they had a repair business, and some of the old trucks that never got fixed or whatever just sat there. And it's, to say it truck graveyard is a little bit of a misnomer, because inside some barns they have some very old antique cars and some nice new ones. But I saw this red Mack truck sitting there, and I thought, oh, that would be perfect for painting with light. And this actually has about 27 different layers in it. I call this ghost truck because as soon as I saw it, I thought about individuals who maybe weren't with us anymore that used to drive this around. And so I painted the little areas, like the Mack, the hood ornament there is one exposure, and then different exposures all around. But I wanted to make it look like ghosts were coming in and out of the, either in or out of the headlamps there, whether they're coming in after a night of haunting or leaving after for the night of haunting. I never really figured that one out, but I had a lot of fun. It took me about an hour and a half to light up all the different sections that I wanted for this.
Very good. So when you say paint with light, do you mean you did some of that while you were there, or post-processing?
No, every piece, like let's say the hood ornament, I took a torch and made one exposure, went over and lit up just that, and then I lit up the fender or the leaves on one side. So it's different areas. I took a base exposure, and the camera stayed open for about 30 seconds, and I just put the light where I wanted it to it for about the amount of time, and then just did another exposure and lit up another area.
Very good. That is it, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you so much to everyone who submitted. I hope those of you who just turned up to see the pictures enjoyed it too. And I'll hand you back to Suzanne.
Okay, again, I thank you, and I thank you, Ken, for organizing this entire session. Without you, it wouldn't have happened. I also want to mention that we have, for the next 5 months, events planned. You'll be able to see them on the website within a week. The AGM's on January the 9th, and we're going to meet Tracy Marshall Grant. She's the new Director of Development for the Royal Photographic Society. She's going to give us a bit of inspiration as to what she's planning. February, we have creative abstract photography, which should be really interesting, with Mary Louise Raviz, and that will be at 3 in the afternoon. She is American, and there is a time difference, so be careful of the time for that one. But I have seen her work, and I have seen one of her sessions, and it's really well worth tuning into. In March, we have Traveler's Tales with the famous Sue O'Connell and Peter Brisley. April is the landscape group, special interest group, spring meetings at RPS, and they have some fantastic speakers lined up in person. You'll be able to register directly for that. In May, we have Carolyn Priest, Tools, Not Rules, a psychological perspective on what makes a good image. So we do have quite a few things planned, and as I mentioned, people who would be new to the committee role for the Western region, we do have a good start for nearly half of the year of the events, and we would be there to help you follow them through. So I'm going to say good morning, and thank you very, very much for being with us. And thank you again, Ken.
You're welcome.
Yeah, thank you, Ken. And thank you.
Yes, thank you both.
Thank you both.
I'm a friend of Caroline Priest, and you will enjoy your talk, Suzanne.
Yes, I've heard her before, and she's absolutely marvelous.
Excellent presentation. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for the invite.
Oh, you're very welcome. We're pleased and proud to have you.
Where's Linda? Is she gone? Right.
No, I'm not gone.
No, you're not
I'm
gone.
still here.
Well, I'm at Crown in February. If you come along.
Yes, I did notice you were there. Yes, we'll have to see what we can do.
Okay. See you.
See you. Bye then.
Bye.